Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to plunge into some complex topics, pull out the key stuff, and, well, figure out what it means for you. Today, it's all about something really shaping modern business. Trust, transparency, and ethics, specifically in predictive commerce. I mean, if your company talks to customers, manages money, even hires people, chances are you're already using automated systems, algorithms, right, to help make those calls.
Almost certainly, yeah.
And the big promise, the reason everyone's jumping on board, it's pretty appealing. These systems are sold as being, better, faster, more accurate.
Right.
And this is the key bit, inherently fairer than us flawed humans making the decisions.
That's the sales pitch, absolutely.
Okay, so let's unpack that a bit, because we've kind of been told, haven't we, that automation takes the messy human feelings out of it.
Yeah.
But digging into the source material here, there's a big but, a paradox right from the start.
That paradox is really the heart of what we need to talk about today. The speed and efficiency numbers, they look great. They definitely go up when you bring in these systems.
Sure.
But, and it's a huge but, they carry this massive, often hidden risk. They don't just reflect the biases already out there, racism, sexism, economic inequality.
The stuff baked into our history.
Exactly. They can actually reproduce those biases, and often they amplify them because they learn from historical data. And that data, well, it's a record of our often unequal, biased past. They aren't learning fairness from scratch. They're learning our patterns.
Wow, amplify, that's a strong word.
It is. And that's why our mission, really, in this deep dive is to figure out the guardrails. What are the strategic, the ethical rules we need for commerce that can actually last?
Right.
We have to get our heads around why being fairer isn't just nice to have. It has to come before just being faster or smarter. Architecturally, operationally, it's fundamental. If leaders treat ethics like, an afterthought.
Like HR's problem, maybe?
Yeah, or legals. They're basically setting themselves up for a commercial disaster down the line. It's not sustainable.
And there's a number in the sources that really makes you sit up, doesn't it? It highlights just how urgent this is.
There is. Only 29% of organizations, just 29%, say they prioritize ethics when they're adopting new sales technology.
29%. That leaves, 71% who don't prioritize it? That seems like a massive gap. Why? What are they thinking?
Well, I think they see it as a cost, a drag, something that slows down innovation or adds red tape, compliance burden, basically.
Okay.
And they fundamentally buy into the idea that because algorithms are math, they must be neutral, objective.
Right. The machine doesn't have feelings or prejudice.
Exactly. But that belief, that perceived neutrality, it masks this huge commercial risk. Because it's not neutral if the data isn't neutral. And that leads to real harm, real legal risks waiting to happen.
So that 71% are potentially operating with a major blind spot.
A massive one.
Okay, so that 29% figure. It really suggests a kind of widespread, maybe willful blindness in operations. And when you look at the examples, the real-world cases of algorithmic bias, it's crystal clear that skipping the integrity part leads directly to commercial problems. Big ones.
Yeah, we really need to look at some specific case studies here, the ones highlighted in the sources. Where does this technical issue, this bias, actually turn into business risk or, social harm?
Give us an example.
Okay, take facial recognition technology. It's used everywhere now, right? ID checks, security. Well, study after study shows these models mess up way more often, sometimes dangerously more often, when trying to identify people with darker skin tones compared to lighter skin tones.
So the tech literally just doesn't work as well for a whole group of people.
Precisely. It's less functional, less reliable. Or think about predictive policing systems.
Okay.
They're supposed to predict where crime might happen. But what do they learn from? They learn from historical data showing where police were sent in the past.
Which might already be biased.
Exactly. So the system ends up constantly flagging neighborhoods that were already heavily policed, reinforcing that cycle. It doesn't necessarily predict new crime hotspots. It just confirms old patterns, often biased ones. And that creates huge friction with communities.
And this isn't just like a social issue separate from business. It hits the bottom line, right? Especially in finance. The sources point to mortgage lending.
Yes, a critical area. We have laws like the Fair Housing Act specifically designed to stop discrimination in lending.
Decades-old foundational stuff.
All right. But analyses show that even with automated systems making the decisions, systems supposedly free of human prejudice, Black and brown borrowers are still disproportionately disadvantaged when applying for mortgages.
How does that happen if the human element is reduced?
It's the data again. The algorithm learns historical patterns that might correlate with race or neighborhood, even if race itself isn't explicitly used as a variable. It operationalizes past discrimination, just digitally and
Right.
at scale.
So the irony is the tool meant to remove bias ends up baking it in and making it harder to spot.
That's exactly it, and it creates massive legal risk. You're potentially violating non-discrimination laws just by running the software without constant rigorous checks and balances, without those bias audits.
What really struck me, it's kind of disturbing, is how this drive for optimization, especially in pricing, can easily slip into something that feels like, well, exploitation.
Yes, this gets into the black box problem again. When the pricing algorithm is opaque, when you don't really know how it's reaching its conclusions, it's not necessarily just finding the single best price that already exists.
Right.
It can actually start learning how to manipulate customers, how to figure out what pushes their buttons to make them willing to pay more.
Wait, explain that difference. Finding the best price versus inflating willingness to pay. How does that work?
Okay, think of it like this. The optimal price is maybe the highest price a fully informed, rational customer would agree to.
Okay.
Manipulation is when the algorithm picks up on signals. Maybe you're searching repeatedly. Maybe your browsing pattern suggests you're in a hurry or stressed.
Like needing a last-minute flight.
Exactly. Or your battery is low, maybe. The algorithm uses these cues, these vulnerabilities, to dynamically push the price higher than you might otherwise accept. It's learning to exploit your situation, not just assess value.
That feels fundamentally different.
It is. And analyses show these algorithms can learn to charge prices way above what you'd see in a truly competitive market, even if the companies aren't, secretly meeting in a back room to fix prices. The complexity itself allows for it.
That sounds like it breaches trust at a really basic level.
Yeah.
You mentioned the proportionality principle earlier. Can you break that down?
Sure. Proportionality is basically a sanity check on using powerful tech. It asks, is deploying this complex, potentially invasive AI system necessary and appropriate to achieve a legitimate business goal?
Okay.
So if your algorithm is using sophisticated psychological profiling just to squeeze a few extra bucks out of someone it identified as vulnerable, is that proportionate to the goal of setting a fair price?
Probably not.
Almost certainly not. It's using a sledgehammer to crack a nut, ethically speaking, and it violates that principle.
You also talked about systemic vulnerability. How does the algorithm actually spot and, well, capitalize on these disadvantages people might face?
They get very good at finding proxies, data points that correlate with desperation or having fewer options.
Like what?
Like your location, maybe? If you live in an area with fewer banks or poor credit access, the algorithm might infer you're less likely to shop around for loans or compare prices.
Because you literally can't, or it's much harder.
Right. Or maybe you only access the internet via a limited mobile data plan, making extensive comparison shopping difficult. The algorithm detects these patterns, these structural disadvantages, and learns that it can charge higher prices or offer worse terms to people in those situations.
So it profits from inequality.
Essentially, yes. It turns a societal problem into a profit opportunity. And while that might offer a short-term revenue bump, it's fundamentally exploitative. It violates non-discrimination principles, and it absolutely tanks your brand's reputation and trust in the long run.
It sounds like a recipe for, well, as you said, commercial self-destruction eventually.
It has to be. Optimization without ethics is a dead end.
Okay, that's the warning. A pretty stark one. But let's flip it. If ignoring integrity is risky, embracing it must have upsides, right? It's not just about avoiding disaster. It's a revenue driver itself.
Absolutely.
For years, the focus has been on speed, faster transactions, high-frequency trading, and intelligence, smarter automation.
And honestly, we're kind of hitting a wall there. Just being faster or smarter isn't the huge differentiator it once was. Plus, too much opaque automation can make interactions feel cold, impersonal.
Yeah, you lose the relationship.
You lose the trust, especially in complex B2B sales or high-value consumer purchases. If your system does something weird and you can't explain why, trust evaporates.
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting, according to the sources. The next big competitive advantage, the thing that will really separate winners from losers, it's equity, fairness.
Exactly. The game is shifting. It's not enough to be fast or smart. You have to be fairer. That's the new competitive moat. Building trust and transparency into your processes, that's the sustainable advantage.
And this isn't just fuzzy feel-good stuff. It's quantifiable.
Totally quantifiable. Trust isn't soft. It's a hard metric, a revenue accelerator. Think of it as a multiplier. When you deliberately bake in responsible AI principles, accountability, transparency, fairness into how your systems work.
From the ground up.
Yes. It speeds up adoption because people aren't scared of it, builds deep user confidence. It makes you stand out from competitors who are still operating in that black box.
And we have data showing what happens when you don't do this, right? The cost of ignoring trust.
We do. A recent survey, I think it was 2022, found 73%, nearly three-quarters of customers, said they'd spend significantly less with the business they didn't trust or saw as unreliable.
73% spending less. That's huge.
And it gets worse. Almost half, 44%, said they'd stop buying from that company entirely if trust was broken.
Wow. So the erosion isn't gradual. It can be sudden and complete.
It can be catastrophic for customer lifetime value. But conversely, when you link ethical practices directly to the P&L, you see it's an investment, not just a cost.
Like what? What are the positive financial returns?
Well, brands that are perceived as ethical see, on average, a 12% increase in customer loyalty.
12% loyalty boost. What does that actually mean in practice?
It means less churn. Customers stick with you longer. It means lower customer acquisition costs because happy, trusting customers become your best salespeople. They recommend you.
Word of mouth.
Exactly. And it means they're often less sensitive to price increases. They trust the value you provide. That gives you resilience, especially when the market gets tough.
So let's tick off the full list of benefits here. It's more than just dodging lawsuits, isn't it?
Oh, much more. Yes, it reduces legal and compliance risks, that's table stakes, but it also significantly enhances your brand reputation.
Which helps attract talent.
Absolutely. Top people want to work for companies they respect, companies that align with their values. So it cuts recruitment costs and boosts internal morale and productivity. It can even improve operational efficiency because clear ethical guidelines often simplify decision-making.
And you mentioned investors.
Yes, increasingly, ethical practices open doors to socially responsible investment funds. It's becoming a factor in accessing capital. So integrity isn't just a line item for the legal department anymore. It's a strategic asset, something that chief revenue officers should be actively leveraging. It de-risks your future.
It's a balance sheet asset, essentially.
That's a great way to put it. A measurable strategic balance sheet asset.
Okay, so we've established the why. It's a strategic necessity, not just a nice to have. So how do we actually do it? How do we get ethics out of the policy binder and into the actual code, the operations, the architecture?
It really requires a different way of thinking. We talk about ethical architecture. That means moving ethics from being just a policy, something HR or legal might issue a memo about, to being an explicit engineering requirement.
Like performance or security.
Exactly. It needs to be a core design constraint. It dictates how data flows, how the user interface works, how decisions get made and reviewed. It's built in, not bolted on.
Because the big danger, as we discussed, is that black box. If you can't see inside, you only find the problems after they've happened.
Right. After the discriminatory loan's been denied or the exploitative price has been charged, the damage is done, the liability is created.
So you need to get ahead of it.
That's the principle of preemptive design. Tech leaders, commercial leaders, they have to rigorously assess and mitigate these ethical risks before the models go live, before they touch a customer.
So things like transparency, accountability, fairness, they need to be part of the system's DNA from day one.
Native characteristics, not features you add later if someone complains. They have to be there from inception.
Okay, so if we're building this ethical architecture, what are the main pillars, the foundational components?
The sources point to 4 key ones. First, transparency. Pretty obvious, but critical. Automated decisions, financial reports, they need to be open to scrutiny, internally by auditors, externally by stakeholders, regulators.
Got it. Second,
Accountability, clear ownership. Who is responsible if the AI messes up? Who owns the data governance? Someone has to be accountable for the outcomes, no hiding behind the algorithm.
makes sense.
Third, stakeholder engagement. This means actively bringing everyone affected into the loop. Customers, employees, suppliers. The system's goals shouldn't just be maximizing shareholder profit. They need to consider the welfare of everyone the system touches.
And the last one.
Sustainability. This is about long-term thinking. Minimizing negative impacts, but also being honest in your marketing. No greenwashing, pretending you're more ethical or sustainable than you really are.
Okay, those are the pillars. Now, what about the core rules, the governance principles, drawing on global standards, human rights? What are the non-negotiables?
We can boil them down to about 5 core principles. 1, Fairness and non-discrimination. This isn't optional. It means you must do regular, tough bias audits on your data, on your models, across all the groups protected by law.
Okay.
2, transparency and explainability. You need to be able to understand why the system made a particular decision, which leads to 3, responsibility and accountability. Clear lines of ownership for any harm caused.
No.
4, proportionality and do no harm. Back to that idea, only use AI where it's truly necessary and appropriate for a legitimate ethical goal. Don't optimize just for the sake of optimization if it causes harm. And 5, right to privacy and data protection, following global standards like GDPR, making sure customer data is handled respectfully and securely.
That second one, transparency and explainability, seems key to making this work in practice. That brings us to XAI, explainable AI. People hear that and think complex math, right?
Yeah, it sounds intimidating. But for a business leader, XAI isn't about understanding the algorithms themselves. It's about practical transparency. Think of it as a cognitive translation layer.
Cognitive translation.
Yeah, it bridges the gap. It takes the super complex stuff happening inside the AI model and translates it into something a human can understand and act on. It answers the basic question, why did it do that?
Okay, and this is crucial for listeners, right? If I'm the CRO, the head of sales, I don't need the equations.
Exactly. You don't need the technical deep dive. What you need is the business rationale. The XAI output has to be tailored for you, the executive.
So instead of technical jargon,
Instead of saying, feature X had a weighting of 0.7, it should say something like, the system recommended this higher price because the customer's purchase history and industry profile suggest they're unlikely to switch suppliers this quarter.
Okay. That's something I can actually use. I can understand it. I can challenge it if it doesn't seem right based on other things I know.
Precisely. It empowers governance. It lets you overlay strategic judgment and ethical constraints onto the AI's recommendation instead of just blindly trusting the machine.
Okay, makes sense. Now, accountability. You said it starts at the top. CEO, CRO. They set the tone.
Absolutely. It's not something you delegate down the chain. Leadership has to actively invest in governance training, set clear policies, and demonstrate integrity themselves. It's about consistency, transparency, honesty when things go wrong. These are measurable leadership behaviors.
And this applies internally too, right? You can't expect customers to trust your AI if your own sales team doesn't trust the tools you give them.
That's a fantastic point. Internal trust is the prerequisite. If your sales team thinks the new AI co-pilot is actually spyware tracking their every move.
Which they might.
They might. And if they do, they'll find ways around it. They'll bypass the protocols, feed it bad data, and the whole ethical chain breaks down from the inside. You have to position AI clearly as a tool to help them, to augment their skills, not as big brother. Get their buy-in.
Right. So to make all this formal institutionalized,
Yeah.
we need specific roles and bodies, don't we?
We do. First, you need that bridge between the tech side and the governance side.
The CAIO.
The Chief AI Ethics Officer, yes. And importantly, this isn't just the compliance officer checking legal boxes. The CAIO is more like the navigator, constantly scanning the horizon for ethical icebergs, managing these complex, fast-moving risks. They align the AI strategy with ethics, manage risks, oversee those crucial bias audits and impact assessments.
Okay, essential role. What about the money side? Ensuring financial integrity.
That's where the Revenue Ethics Council comes in. This needs to be a high-level, groupthink audit committee chair, general counsel involved. Their job is fundamental accounting integrity.
Meaning
they ensure every financial record, every number that feeds into a forecast, every transaction is accurate, properly classified, and backed up by real documentation. No creative accounting allowed, no fudging numbers to hit a target. They are the guardians of financial truth.
Got it. And then something to handle the day-to-day transparency.
That's the transparency agent function. This might be a specific person, or maybe it's built into the system itself. Its role is to document and communicate how things work. What data sources are being used, which algorithms are running, what metrics are being tracked for fairness and bias.
So it provides the evidence for scrutiny.
Exactly. It builds trust both internally and externally because the workings aren't hidden. And it's a critical early warning system for spotting data bias before it becomes a systemic disaster.
Okay, we've got the architecture, the governance roles. Now let's walk through how this actually plays out in the real world, across the customer journey, starting at stage 1, quoting and predictive pricing. This feels like a major friction point where optimization can easily cross into manipulation.
It absolutely is. And the big challenge here is a mindset shift, really, moving away from traditional economic thinking,
Which fit.
which often argued that price discrimination, charging different people different prices based on what you think they'll pay, is efficient for the market overall. But if you're committed to ethical commerce, you need to embrace what the sources call the egalitarian view. The default should be equal prices for the same product or service for everyone.
Equal prices as the starting point.
Yes. Variations should only be based on legitimate, transparent factors like volume discounts, different shipping costs, things you can clearly explain and justify, not based on perceived vulnerability.
That's a significant strategic choice, though. It might mean leaving some potential margin on the table if that margin comes from, well, exploiting someone's situation.
It absolutely does mean that, and that's where the tech challenge comes in. Because the AI models, if you just tell them maximize profit, they will find those exploitative strategies. They're designed to optimize.
So you have to actively stop them.
You have to build in constraints. Data science teams can't just focus on prediction accuracy anymore. They need to integrate business fairness metrics as core optimization goals.
Like what? Give me an example.
Okay, instead of just maximizing overall profit, the model might be constrained to minimize that algorithmic disparity ratio we'll talk about later. Ensure outcomes are fair across different demographic groups, even if that means the absolute maximum profit isn't achieved. Fairness becomes a non-negotiable boundary condition.
It balances profit with equity.
Precisely. It has to be architecturally enforced.
So how do you make this commitment to fairness visible and believable to the customer? How does it build trust on the front lines?
Through radically transparent pricing. The sources propose the ACC standard as a way to formalize this.
ACC, what does that stand for?
A is for accessible information. Basic pricing, standard terms, customers shouldn't have to hunt for this stuff. It should be easy to find.
Okay, first C.
Comprehensive details. This means a full, itemized breakdown, no hiding fees in the small print, full disclosure of all potential charges, any dynamic elements, everything.
And the second C, this sounds tricky with personalized pricing, comparability.
This is the toughest one, you're right. Comparability means presenting your pricing in a standardized format that allows a customer to easily compare your offer to a competitor's. No confusing jargon, no weird structures designed to obscure the real cost.
So they can make an apples-to-apples comparison.
Exactly. It prevents companies from hiding high prices behind complexity.
And the goal of sticking to this ACC standard isn't just compliance, is it? It's about changing the relationship.
Completely. Transparency acts as value justification. You shift the whole dynamic. Instead of this adversarial game, how much can I get away with charging? It becomes a conversation about fair value. Here's the price. Here's exactly why it's worth that. Here's how it breaks down.
Builds equity in the brand, not just the transaction.
Exactly. Long-term relationships over short-term gouging.
Okay, moving along the life cycle. Stage 2, forecasting and sales integrity. Here, the pressure often comes from inside, right? The push to hit the quarterly numbers.
Huge internal pressure point. And that's where the internal honesty mandate comes in, enforced by that Revenue Ethics Council we talked about.
So, no cooking the books.
No cooking the books, no matter how tempting it is to make the forecast look good. Strict rules. All accounting records, including all the data feeding the forecast models, have to be accurate. No deliberate misclassification, no hiding stuff from auditors. Every number needs a clear, documented basis in reality.
But a lot of forecasting and sales automation relies heavily on AI now. How do you stop the AI, designed for speed and smarts, from just running the show without any human moral check?
The fundamental rule is the human-in-the-loop constraint. For any really consequential decision, AI should guide, maybe recommend, but never operate entirely without the possibility of human review and override.
Okay, but who gets to override and when? You need rules for that too.
Absolutely. The system architecture needs clear decision rights. Who has the authority to adjust an AI-generated forecast or change an automated sales sequence, and under what specific circumstances is that allowed? It can't be arbitrary.
So you need an override protocol. But what stops managers from just constantly overriding the AI to make their numbers look better, essentially reintroducing bias or pressure?
That's a critical question. The protocol isn't just about allowing overrides, it's about monitoring them. It needs a feedback loop.
How does that work?
Okay, so a manager might override a forecast because they have some solid qualitative intel. Maybe a competitor just went bust. The AI doesn't know that yet. That's legitimate.
Right.
But if that same manager overrides the system repeatedly, maybe always in the same direction, the protocol should automatically trigger an escalation
To who?
to a central function like RevOps or finance for review. It forces an examination of the pattern and the rationale. Is there a problem with the model? Or is the manager gaming the system?
Ah, so the human is still the ethical check,
Yeah.
but the system checks the human's consistency.
Exactly. It prevents individual bias or pressure from silently becoming a systemic issue. You need these formal escalation paths to ensure fairness and legality aren't compromised in those critical moments.
Okay, stage 3, fulfillment and honest communication. Let's face it, things go wrong. Shipments get delayed. Products have defects. It's inevitable.
Totally inevitable, especially with complex global supply chains. And this is where integrity really gets tested. It's the service recovery test.
How you handle the screw-up defines you.
Precisely. And the core principle here has to be radical honesty. Trying to dodge, delay, or downplay bad news, that just makes things 10 times worse. It destroys trust instantly.
We've all been there as customers, right?
Absolutely. Being open about problems, even collaborating with customers or partners on solutions, that actually builds trust and loyalty in the long run. It shows respect.
And the timing of that honesty is crucial.
Oh, massively. It's the proactive communication imperative.
Yeah.
You have to tell the customer about the problem as soon as you know about it. Critically, your message needs to land before they figure it out themselves and start chasing you.
Because if I have to call you to ask where my stuff is,
You immediately assume incompetence or dishonesty, or both. Silence equals guilt in the customer's mind. Compare that to getting a proactive message. Hey, we know there's a delay with your order. Here's the new ETA. We're sorry. That feels completely different.
it builds confidence, weirdly enough, even though it's bad news.
It does, because it shows you're on top of it and you respect them enough to tell them.
So when that failure happens, what's the checklist for communicating effectively and empathetically?
Okay, 4 key things. 1, accurate, transparent information, what exactly happened and what's the realistic new timeline. No sugarcoating. 2, show genuine empathy. Acknowledge the inconvenience this is causing them.
Right.
3, offer solutions or compensation where appropriate. Make it right. This could be a refund, a discount on the next order, an alternative product, something tangible that shows you value their business. And 4, commit to regular updates. Keep them informed until it's resolved, even if it's just to say, no change yet, still working on it. Don't go silent again.
Okay, clear steps. Now the final stage, stage 4, billing, renewal, and keeping things transparent in the revenue cloud. This feels like where trust, carefully built up earlier, can suddenly just evaporate.
It's so often the case, isn't it? You have a great sales experience, decent fulfillment, and then the bill arrives.
And it's a mystery.
Exactly, the transparency litmus test. The biggest culprit is the mystery invoice. Just a single line item, services rendered, with a big number next to it. It completely destroys trust, and internally, it makes it impossible to track real costs and margins accurately.
So the mandate here is
Rigorous itemization. Every single time. Detailed breakdowns, ideally linked back to the original order, or, quote, clear explanations for every charge. No ambiguity.
And if you're a business choosing vendors, tech partners, logistics firms are their warning signs to look for related to billing transparency.
Yes, the sources flag 2 specific red flags when you're vetting partners. First, if a potential vendor refuses to show you a sample invoice, maybe redacted, that's a huge warning.
Why? What does that hide?
It could mean their systems literally can't produce detailed invoices. Or worse, they're deliberately hiding complex or uncompetitive fees. Second red flag. If they refuse to give you a firm quote for a real specific shipment or project and only give vague estimates,
What does that signal?
often it means they don't actually have a good handle on their own costs and are just padding the numbers to be safe, or they plan to nickel and dime you later. Walk away from vendors like that.
So architecturally, how do you prevent this breakdown between the price promised and the price billed?
The solution lies in unifying your systems. Using integrated revenue lifecycle management, RLM platforms, is key.
How does RLM help?
Because it connects the dots. It links the quoting system, the contracting system, and the billing system together on one platform. This ensures that the specific pricing logic, the discounts, the terms agreed upon in the quote, they flow through automatically and consistently to the final invoice.
So the details don't get lost or changed between departments.
Exactly. It guarantees that the invoice accurately reflects the deal that was made. It's the architectural backbone that prevents that awful bill shock and preserves trust right to the very end.
Right, so we've designed the ethical architecture, we've put processes in place across the whole customer journey. But you said earlier, integrity is a strategic asset.
Hmm.
If it's an asset, we need to measure it right. How on earth do you quantify something like integrity?
It sounds abstract, but you measure it through observable behaviors and their outcomes. What does integrity look like in action? It looks like consistency. Do our actions match our stated values? It looks like honesty in reporting. Do we flag delays immediately? It looks like transparent decision-making and fair treatment. These aren't feelings. They're actions you can track.
Okay, so we need metrics, but maybe not just the usual financial ones. Non-financial indicators, NFIs.
Exactly, because looking only at revenue or profit won't show you if you're building that sustainable, trust-based advantage. Key NFIs would be things like tracking your company reputation scores, monitoring customer influence like Net Promoter Score, how many people recommend you, and even the success rate of projects specifically designed with ethical principles in mind.
And internal trust matters too.
Hugely. High internal confidence, where employees trust leadership and the tools they use, is a powerful leading indicator. It almost always translates into better customer service, lower churn, and contributes to that 12% loyalty boost we talked about.
Okay, let's get really practical. If a commercial exec wants an integrity dashboard, what are the top, say, 3 operational KPIs they absolutely must track?
All right, 3 critical ones based on the sources. First, the proactive delay communication rate, PDC percent.
PDC rate, what's that measuring?
It's the percentage of fulfillment issues, like delays or defects, where you notified the customer before they contacted you. Track it daily or weekly. It's your direct measure of radical honesty in operations. Low PDC means you're hiding problems. High PDC means you're building trust.
Okay, PDC percent. What's number 2? Something for fairness.
Yes, the algorithmic disparity ratio, ADR. This needs to be tracked quarterly or whenever you significantly update a predictive model, like pricing or credit scoring.
ADR, how does that work?
It quantifies whether your algorithm is producing significantly different outcomes for different protected groups, say, based on race or gender, even after accounting for legitimate factors. You compare the rate of positive outcomes, like loan approvals or getting the standard price, between segment A and segment B. A significant unexplained difference gives you your disparity ratio. It measures if your fairness constraints are actually working.
Got it. ADR for fairness. And the third KPI? Probably about billing.
You guessed it. The invoice discrepancy rate, IDR, tracked monthly. This is simply the percentage of invoices that customers dispute because of unclear charges, hidden fees, or differences from the original quote.
So it measures how well you're meeting that itemization litmus test.
Exactly. High IDR means your billing is opaque and eroding trust, likely indicating a problem in your RLM process or structure. Low IDR means you're delivering on transparency.
PDC, ADR, IDR. Okay, measurable stuff.
Sawa?
But tracking it isn't enough, right? Integrity needs constant attention. It can't just be a project you do once.
Absolutely not. It has to be an ongoing discipline woven into the rhythm of the business, not just a binder gathering dust.
So how do you sustain that? What's the structure?
You need a formal review cadence. Start with quarterly commercial integrity reviews. These are dedicated executive meetings.
Who attends?
Key leaders, CRO, maybe the CAIO, heads of relevant departments like sales, service, finance, RevOps.
And what do they do?
They focus specifically on that integrity dashboard, analyzing the trends in PDC, ADR, IDR. They review the significant AI overrides and escalations flagged by the transparency agent. The whole point is collective learning and improvement. What's working, what's not, what architectural tweaks do we need? It's about fixing systems, not blaming an individual.
Okay, quarterly check-ins. And long-term. How do you stop the commitment from fading when, inevitably, pressure mounts to cut costs or just optimize faster?
That requires an annual strategy renewal focused on ethics. This is a deeper strategic review. Does our commitment to ethical design still have the resources it needs? Is it still central to our long-term strategy?
So it reaffirms the commitment at the highest level.
Yes, and ensures it's properly funded. It's about consciously resisting that short-term pressure for optimization at all costs and reinvesting in the transparency, accountability, and sustainability that builds the long-term moat. You have to keep funding the moat year after year. Hashtag OTROO, the ethical steward. So, as we wrap up this deep dive, the main takeaway really has to be this. Just having the best tech, the fastest algorithm, it's not enough anymore. It might even be a liability if it's not governed properly.
Yeah.
We've seen how predictive commerce brought amazing speed and intelligence, but sustainable revenue, the kind that lasts, that's built on a foundation of fairness. And that's not just a moral point, it's an architectural necessity, an operational requirement. It has to come before just being faster or smarter. Operationalizing integrity is the only path forward.
Yeah, we've traced that journey, haven't we? From seeing how bias gets baked into lending and pricing algorithms, all the way to putting the right structures in place that Chief AI Ethics Officer, the Revenue Ethics Council, and implementing really practical rules on the ground, like the ACC standard for pricing or radical honesty when things go wrong in fulfillment.
And remembering that this isn't just cost, it's investment. That commitment to ethical architecture pays real dividends. That 12% loyalty boost is a tangible return.
Yeah.
And by actually measuring this stuff, tracking those KPIs like proactive delayed communication rate, the algorithmic disparity ratio leaders can move beyond vague promises. They can build verifiable trust.
It's true. The systems are getting smarter, faster all the time. But it feels like optimizing without those ethical guardrails. That's just a fast track to commercial self-destruction, isn't it?
It really is. The sustainable path, the one that leads to long-term growth, isn't guided by the cleverest algorithm alone. It needs that human compass, ethics.
So the final thought we want to leave you, the listener, with is this. Take a really hard look at your own business architecture, especially how it interacts with your customers, maybe particularly the most vulnerable ones. Is your system fundamentally built to accelerate revenue through genuine trust and fairness? Or is it, perhaps unintentionally, set up to exploit hidden vulnerabilities for short-term gain?
That difference, that's everything for your future success.
Think about it. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.